think that we're holy when we're negating ourselves. And when we're having too much fun, we feel like we're using up all our olam haba. Like I'm pleasure. Pleasure isn't the using of schar. Pleasure is the achievement of schar. Pleasure means that you were just ma'ached Hashem. It's easier to realize that when you're in the world of emotion or intellect, meaning what is intellectual echad? Emes. So if I'm learning and I get emes, then I understand maybe that causes schar. But even then, I think it only gives me schar because I'm not partying, I'm learning. No, the reason why learning gives you schar is because learning is emes, because it's a trip. And love it's not, love is holy. It's the emotional experience of echad. And so is cholent. Cholent, music, art, every single thing pleasurable. Some things are visual experiences of echad, some are emotional experiences of echad. Everything's different versions of echad. Okay? So that's the story. So what we said is this is just a cool thing when you're talking to an atheist. So this is the coolest thing to show an atheist. An atheist means he does not believe in God. Okay? So what is the Jewish? We're just finishing the recap of the previous year. You didn't miss anything. So we said an atheist is a person who says, I don't believe in God. How are we defining God according to this talk? What is God? Oneness. So if you want to be an atheist, what do you have to say you don't believe in?
Pleasure.
Oneness. But everybody in the world is chasing pleasure their entire life. So not only are you not an atheist, but you're a crazy fanatic. You don't do anything but chase God. You literally, your entire life is like Yom Kippur. Like literally every single day you're sitting there, like there's not one thought that goes through our minds that's not about echad. Think about it. Not one, every single thought all day long is about echad. Even what we think are averis is about echad, because we're only doing it because it's pleasurable. Oh, so why is it an avera then? That's a good kasha. So why are there pleasures that are usher? And the answer is there are no pleasures that are usher. Every pleasure is echad, and therefore every pleasure is godly. So if something is usher, it means because it's not a pleasure. You're making a mistake. You're doing bad accounting.
There are examples where negation is in the Torah.
Like
a Navi is not allowed to be, to sleep with his wife.
No, because all the cases where negation is not is because one person's echad is another person's period. Right? Period, and echad. I'll give you a very simple way to see it. It's all relative. If a girl says to a boy, "Let's be friends," is that a unifying statement or a disunifying statement? What does it sound like? Well, it depends. If they're single, then it's unifying. If they're married, and they're saying just be friends, let's be friends, so then that's a step backwards. The same statement is relative, right? So if you're sitting and playing guitar and writing amazing music, and the mashkiach walks into the dorm and says, "Nukshan with the guitar, get in the beis medrash," he's not telling you don't enjoy music. He's telling you that this is low-hanging fruit pleasure. And we'll get into it. We'll get into the hierarchies of pleasure. But if the Torah is saying that all the Torah wants is that you should experience the maximum experience of God that's possible. Hashem is echad. So the entire Judaism is the maximum echad. If something is usher, it's saying that this is not echad. Maybe it's echad for someone else, but for you it's not echad. Right? Like the best example is someone's married and they have an affair. So why are they having an affair? Why would someone do something? Everything you do is a pleasure. So, because there is an echad with this person. I'm experiencing a oneness, physical, on some level, emotional, some kind of. So then the question is, so why is it usher? And the answer is that. What's the answer? What? What? But this is more complicated than just a lower level. You're married, so you're destroying your marriage and your kids' lives, and every single thing in your life is going to be divided in half. There's going to be no achdus left. Your house, your bank account, your business, everything is going to be split in half. So then the question is, okay, so why did I do it? Meaning, so when I say everything's going to split in half, that's just a philosophical way of saying what? Why is it usser? Say grub. Why is it usser? But that's philosophy. Say it real.
It's messing with the echad.
You're all talking philosophy. Talk grub. Talk real.
You're gonna, like you said, you're gonna lose half your assets. You're gonna mess up.
And what's wrong with that?
Now pleasure, less oneness.
Less pleasure.
Less pleasure. It hurts.
Yeah.
That's all there is. We make everything complicated. We need to make it echad. I'm just showing you that pleasure's echad. The reason you're doing it is not echad. It's pleasure, right? It's pleasure. So the way you measure something.
Pleasure is echad.
What?
But pleasure is echad.
Pleasure is echad. I'm just saying, but why are we calling it echad? Just be real. What's wrong with being with the secretary? Not that it's not echad. Say it more real.
It's echad.
It's painful.
It's temporary echad, which is causing long-term non-achdus.
But you see, because you need to make it spiritual. I want
because
to.
it
I want to
avoids
make it
pleasure.
so simple, so real. The reason why you shouldn't do anything is because it's painful. Everything pleasurable is holy, because pleasure is echad, and therefore it's God. If it's pleasurable, it's
So
God.
It's painful to be with your secretary.
What?
Yeah.
What?
So it's painful to be with the secretary, is what you're saying?
Yes.
What
Why?
if you never get caught?
Oh, why? Because, well, either you never get caught. Someone else didn't catch you. You caught you. You know.
But how does
Yeah,
that
When you're home with your wife and kids, you're not really there. You're full of shame and guilt. You can't look in the mirror. You buy her, instead of feeling like $1 million by her anniversary when you buy her the most beautiful gift, you feel like a fraud. Your entire life is fake. There's a million things wrong. Being caught is such a simple pain. There's much deeper pains. The deepest pains are just living with yourself. But that's already psychology. We'll do psychology another time. But just I want to show you. So the reason why we do Averis at this stage of the talk, before the psychology stage, in the philosophy stage of the talk, the reason why we do Averis is always faulty accounting. That's all. Right now, the pleasure was here. The pain comes a month later when I get busted. And then, if I totaled all of the pain and pleasure, of course it's a stupid choice. The way you figure out if something is a mitzvah and avera is the net result. Anything with a net result is echad, is a mitzvah. And everything with a net result is pirud, is an avera. And it's as simple as that. And you know, and that's why the Rebbe's used to say things like this. When you do an avera, don't knock yourself out. Figure why you did it. The only reason you did it was pleasurable. And if it was pleasurable, it means there was something holy in there. It was usher. It's because you didn't chap that the holy thing is mixed in with unholy things. Now figure out, but that stuff didn't give you pleasure. Figure out how you could have the thing you wanted without the other thing, and then you'll be a tzaddik.
What
Yeah.
about like Robin Hood-esque characters?
Okay.
So somebody who steals from the rich and gives to the poor, they believe what they're doing is right. They're like, obviously, it's
Oh,
fair.
that's a very good question. So he's asking very good. What happens when you actually believe that you're that what?
Other than the Torah.
What you're saying when you believe that you did good, so you never have the period, right? When you believe you're good. So the answer to those things is ultimately the secretary is a simple example because it takes a few months to get caught.
Does the pleasure come from the thought, or does the pleasure come from something a little deeper?
No, the pleasure over there comes from justice.
You think you're doing something
comes from
right.
justice, but you think you're never gonna. It sounds like you're never gonna face a comeuppance. You're never gonna face a day where because you never see the period. But the fact of the matter is, what is wrong with Robin Hood? It's a very deep question. What's the answer, Rabbi? What's the answer? Why are you assuming that Robin Hood is bad?
Because it's usher to steal.
But why is this stealing? He's not really stealing. He's. What's wrong with stealing?
Maybe he's a good Menagana.
Because
It's justice. It's creating justice. So what's wrong with vigilantism?
Is good Menagana wrong or right?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
That's a very good question. What the teretz is,
Or maybe it's not wrong?
yeah.
You're not going to punish for it. It's up
Is
to
there
you.
anything that's between right and wrong, or is
It's
there
like,
anything
it's
either right
like
or
the
wrong?
CEO
It's
killer.
wrong.
It's a great area.
Right, right. Say, all right. What's wrong? Exactly. That's a very good example. So the CEO killer, everyone's attracted to it. But then when you dig a little deeper and you realize this guy pulled them,
You like a black and white world?
it's the problem with the problem with Nakama
Like it's not up to him.
The Gemara says, "Gadol nekama shanitel ben shtei shemais." It's one of the holiest things in the world, because it shows up in the Torah between Hashem's name on both sides. Kel nekamais Hashem, a God, a vengeance God. It's like sandwich. It's a God sandwich. What's in the sandwich? What's the meat? Revenge. Revenge. Nekama is the holiest thing. But so what's wrong with it? What's Nekama? Nekama is the experience of God.
Does that also teach us that Nekama is something that's reserved only for Hashem? It's not for us.
Why? What, I call this whole mahalach. I call it religion. Religion are real. Let's figure it out without saying, without saying things that only things that make total sense. Let's see how. That's what I started with. How far could we go? You'd be surprised how far you could basically explain all of Yiddishkeit beyond debate, like totally defensible. Because we don't have Mishigasim. Everything makes sense. That's what I want to show. I want to show how perfect it is. You don't need to say, what is it? The problem is that Kel Nekama is that Nekama is that you aren't God. What does that mean in religion? That you're not God.
That it's not up to you to decide what.
That's not religion. That's religion. What's religion?
You don't know all the factors.
You don't know everything. You don't see the whole world. This guy who he killed, yes, he's a CEO, but do you know he built himself up? His family had no money. Do you know what? We don't know everything. If you have all the data, then it is just to do things, and maybe even then, maybe it's wrong because maybe the guy will fix it. And why are you going to kill the guy? Let him do it himself. Maybe you can help. Maybe there's a better way to help the person get on the straight and narrow. Talk to him and help him return what he stole. There are superior ways to do this. The worst way to solve a problem is to kill the guy. It's a last resort. Imagine if you could talk to the guy and he'll use his whole power now to change the whole medical industry, the whole insurance industry, and change the world. You have the most powerful guy.
So what about the Robin then?
So Robin Hood's exactly the same thing. Robin Hood might be a glorification of the victims. That maybe they're all lazy people who live on government programs. Maybe they're not just poor. Maybe they're living off the state and they just kvetch all day long and they're all drunk. And maybe the rich people worked hard. Maybe Robin Hood is a terrible woke leftist story that we were all brainwashed. We think woke started 30 years ago. Maybe Robin Hood is like hundreds of years of wokeness, teaching people that rich people are evil and poor people are all holy. The poor people were all drunks. They didn't want to take any risks. They didn't.
So for the sake of example, let's say that it's not the case. Let's say he's a tyrannical king and for whatever reason.
I understand. So then there again. So that maybe you have to kill the guy. Maybe you're supposed to. There's room for we're supposed to take revenge on certain things. Ultimately, when we say it, what's wrong with revenge is that let God do it. God knows how to do it better. But in religion, it sounds better when you say it. What does that mean when we say that? Let God do it. It is beautiful justice. Like that's how I used to say it. Like justice, revenge is beautiful. But like, who's going to take better revenge, you or God? Who's more creative? Who can get him worse? Who's more powerful? So why are you doing it? The only reason why you're doing it, you don't believe in God, right? Because if
we're going with the standing of building it from the base up, like you said.
Oh, good. That's how I used to say it. Now I'm saying the same thing. It doesn't sound as cool. It sounds very cool to say. That's a sharp thing to say. It's like God is smarter than you and he's more talented than you. It'll make the guy suffer better. He has more power and he's more creative. Right, and stronger muscles, so let God do the revenge. You don't believe that God's going to do it.
Right.
So that's why you're doing it. So translate that to religion. In religion, what you're saying is that you don't know everything. You don't get all the equations. You're going to do it, but you're not going to do it accurately. You might overdo it. You might crowbar the guy to death because he cut you off in traffic. That's not justice either. Right. You know, you were short-sighted. And that's what we trust. The Torah, again, I'm not telling you to trust the Torah at this point in the talk, but over time, when you go through it, you will develop a trust in Torah, and even in Chazal. And you'll realize that these people, like they mamish, they had it. And it's literally as perfect as a human being can articulate things. Is like the perfect balance, taking things into account that we never imagined. It's just, because you really have to start off with the right map, and this is the map. The map is a map of Echad, And that's a recap with extra of the first talk. Any questions? We'll do part 2.
This is only Pinado Havera, like pleasure stuff. This is doing, learning, shaking lulav, and all those things are not pleasurable
Whoa.
per se. It's not a, it's an echad, where's the echad?
Okay, so first of all, learning doesn't belong in there. It's a sad thing that people think that learning goes in the same paragraph as lulav. But learning is the ultimate pleasure. Intellectual pleasure, intellectual echad is the highest trip a human being can experience. like I was just talking to a guy who's an essay. Okay, so I was trying to just give him like a Toyerdic way to like deal with his stuff. I said like he couldn't understand like how we could ever break this. So I asked him, is there anything that you like more than this kind of stuff? You know, like that's a start. Like you got to figure out what you enjoy. You're not such a low person. You must have deeper things to you. Like even grubber things. Like what do you like more? So he says nothing. I said what? I said money. You don't like money more? He goes okay, money. You know. So I said okay. So already you discovered that money. So if you could be busy making money all day long, you'd forget that you're an addict, right? Because you like money. Sit down.
To money though.
What?
You have addicted to money though.
Okay, good, but addiction's great. What's wrong with addiction? Addiction might depending what the word means. My definition of I have a unique definition of addiction because what most people call addiction, another person calls ambition, and it's just maybe a leftist marketing, trying to make people feel guilty for being driven. They want everyone to chill and be calm and docile. And anyone who's too passionate about something, we like to call them narcissists and addicts and have a lot of names for them. But there is my definition of addiction is someone who's doing something not because he wants to do it, but because he's running away from something else. That's my definition of an addict. I don't know if that's scientific definition, but that's the unhealthy thing. I see someone running somewhere, I go, he's not running to work, he's running away from the base measures. Okay? Like which one is it? If you're running anywhere, it's holy to run. Anywhere you're running is holy. If you're running away from something, running away is never holy. Okay? Anyway, this is a lot of stuff. Let's stay focused. So this is the pleasure talk. This is called part 1 of God.